Wow, Lamar Jackson. Wow. This is unreal, man. What is going on, everyone? This is Sports Guy talking that you guys are listening and watching. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Lamar Jackson not being able to secure a long-term deal on not just the Ravens, but on any NFL team. Not just that, but it seems as if no team will be willing to give up 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is currently set to play on a 1-year, $32.416 million non-exclusive franchise tag. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. What is your reaction to Lamar Jackson's inability to get a long-term contract done? And what I've got to say is this is really a shame for Lamar Jackson. And I say that because you look at quarterbacks that are worse than Lamar Jackson that are getting their contracts done. You look at guys like Derek Carr, who's gotten not 1, not 2, but 3 $100+ million contracts in his NFL career. You look at a mid-quarterback like Kirk Cousins getting $100+ million contracts on multiple occasions. You look at a guy like Daniel Jones getting paid $40 million per year on his contract. And then you see what Lamar Jackson has accomplished. He's been a former MVP quarterback. He's been 45-16 as a starting quarterback. He's been known as one of the top players in the National Football League in each of the 5 years that he has played in there. And despite that, he can't seem to get a long-term deal done. I've heard that one of the main reasons why he can't get a long-term deal done is because he is asking for a fully guaranteed contract, which honestly, let's keep it real, he does not deserve that. Lamar Jackson is a fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but he's not a guy that you give the bag to and say you're going to get 100% of that contract. And honestly, no NFL player should have gotten that. I know some people are going to point to Deshaun Watson and say, how come he got to have a fully guaranteed contract? And what I'm going to say is that was wrong by the Cleveland Browns. They should not have paid him that contract to begin with. And honestly, they only paid Deshaun Watson that contract just so he could come to Cleveland, because Deshaun Watson didn't want to go to the Cleveland Browns at first. But the Cleveland Browns were so desperate to get him, they said, Deshaun, we're going to go ahead and guarantee 100% of your next contract that you're going to be getting from the Cleveland Browns. And therefore, that led to Deshaun Watson going to the Cleveland Browns. But in 99 cases out of 100, the NFL does not want to give a guy a fully guaranteed contract. Also because of the fact that if you give a guy a fully guaranteed contract, it's going to be very difficult to build around that contract in terms of getting them good players in free agency, which means that building draft picks and hitting on those draft picks, it's going to be even harder than usual to already hit on because of the fact that the quarterback is taking up so much money in the cap space that free agency is not going to really matter all that much to begin with, since the quarterback would already be on a big contract to begin with. But the fact of the matter is that draft picks are going to be harder than ever to hit on, especially if you have a quarterback that's already locked up on a long-term deal. In the NFL, there is nothing more valuable than having an elite quarterback on a rookie contract. The Baltimore Ravens got that benefit for 5 seasons. Now they have to go ahead and pay up Lamar Jackson what his actual worth is, or at least that's what they're supposed to do. Except they didn't do that. They're telling Lamar Jackson, go ahead, test the market. Let's see how many teams are actually interested in giving Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract. And look at the results now. It seems like no one is interested in giving Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract. And credit to the Baltimore Ravens, I will give them credit for this, for letting him test out the market and letting the market dictate his value. Too many of these teams want to overpay their homegrown talent at the quarterback position, and that's why a lot of these teams make mistakes. There's a reason why the Baltimore Ravens, though, are one of the most successful franchises in the National Football League. It's because the Baltimore Ravens are very frugal with their money, and they understand that they can't be going out there and giving people $300 million contracts out there. They understand that whatever they got to do, they got to do it in the best interest of their team. And I've heard some people say Lamar Jackson has never been given great receivers to work with on the Baltimore Ravens. And although I'm not going to dispute that point, what I will say is that they've given Lamar Jackson a lot of things. What they did is, instead of building him with elite wide receivers, they gave him an elite offensive line, they gave him an elite tight end, they gave him an awesome running game, they built an offense around Lamar Jackson, and they built up the defense around him, and they also have an elite football head coach in John Harbaugh. Lamar Jackson has everything but wide receivers. If you're that guy that wants to get a fully guaranteed contract, you better prove to the Baltimore Ravens that you're that guy and that you can elevate anybody, anywhere, any place, anytime. And Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's done that, but not to that extent. I mean, there's a reason why Lamar Jackson has not been able to finish out the last 2 seasons, and that's because he's gotten hurt at key times, and the Baltimore Ravens are saying your best ability better be availability, because if that's not your best trait, then that means we can't pay you that fully guaranteed contract. If I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm going to lower down my asking demand, because no team is going to give him a fully guaranteed contract. Nobody's going to do that. That's just bad business. I understand the Cleveland Browns were willing to do that for Deshaun Watson. Well, that's why we mock the Cleveland Browns for doing that with the Deshaun Watson situation, because it's not like the Cleveland Browns are going to become a winning franchise anytime soon with that Deshaun Watson contract. And I've also heard some people say, how come no one is willing to give 2 first-round picks for a 26-year-old guy that has won an MVP award in the past? And what I will say to that is, well, look at the teams that have given up all those draft picks for quarterbacks. You look at Matthew Stafford. Okay, he ain't being a Super Bowl champion, but his body's broken down now. Who knows how many more years he's got at this thing in the NFL. But then you look at the Russell Wilson trade, how the Broncos gave up so many things to get Russell Wilson. Look at how that's working out. It's working out disastrously. And then, of course, you look at the Deshaun Watson situation, where they gave up 3 first-round draft picks to go ahead and get him. Now look at where the Cleveland Browns are at. They're not really a team that's going to get better anytime soon. So when you look at Lamar Jackson's situation, you have to say to yourself, yes, even though he's a former MVP, even though the fact that he's 45-16 as a starting quarterback, even though the fact that he is only 26 years old and is considered to be one of the better players in all of the National Football League, you also have to consider yourself, what do you think the projection is going to be? Do you still think Lamar Jackson is going to be an elite quarterback 5 years from now? Do you think that Lamar Jackson can become a championship caliber quarterback in that time span? Do you believe that Lamar Jackson will be able to become a player that's on Joe Burrow's level, a guy on Jalen Hurts' level, a guy on Patrick Mahomes' level? If you don't believe that's the answer, then that means that these teams should not be making moves to get Lamar Jackson. Is it unfortunate for Lamar Jackson? Yes, but at the same time, kind of hard to cry victim when you don't have your own agent and also ask for fully guaranteed money. No NFL team is going to do that. Lamar Jackson has got to lower down his asking price, because no one is going to meet that. There's a reason why 5 teams immediately ruled out Lamar Jackson. Those were the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the Washington Commanders, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Miami Dolphins. Why did they do that? Because they know that they can't afford to give him a fully guaranteed contract, because they can't build the rest of the team around Lamar Jackson. Most of these teams that need a quarterback, they are not just a QB away from Super Bowl contention. You look at the Atlanta Falcons, they need more than just a quarterback in order to compete for a Super Bowl. If they get Lamar Jackson, do they become instant favorites in the NFC South? Yeah, they become instant favorites in the NFC South. Do they become instant contenders in the NFC? I'm not so sure about that, because the Falcons defense is suspect right now. And then you look at the Carolina Panthers, same thing as the Atlanta Falcons. They're more than a QB away from being in Super Bowl contention. And then you look at the Washington Commanders. Even though they are a QB away from being possible contenders in the NFC, you also have to remember the fact that they got a young quarterback that they've already got on the roster that's pretty good. His name is Sam Howell. I understand that Sam Howell is kind of unproven, but he's impressed the Commanders in practice. In the one game that he did play in, he looked really good in it. If I'm the Commanders, I'm going to go ahead and keep Sam Howell as my starting quarterback, and I'm going to add a cheap veteran to give him some competition for that starting job. But if you're the Commanders, it's not worth giving that contract to Lamar Jackson. And then you look at the Raiders. The Raiders are definitely more than just a QB away from Super Bowl contention. They need a whole new coaching staff. And honestly, the fit between Josh McDaniels and Lamar Jackson is not going to be great anyways. And then the other team that ruled out Lamar Jackson was the Miami Dolphins. Their situation is certainly interesting, because Lamar Jackson, he grew up in Miami, and they got a quarterback named Tua. He seems to be pretty good, but he's always hurt all the time. But when he does play, he's really good, or at least he seems to be really good. And the Miami Dolphins, they invested the 5th overall pick in Tua Tagovailoa not too long ago. So when you look at it from that perspective, they don't want to give up on Tua just so they can go ahead and pay Lamar Jackson $250 million, all of it guaranteed. They're not going to be willing to do that. Now, maybe if Lamar Jackson lowers down his asking price, maybe they would be willing to do that. But for the moment, with the asking price that Lamar Jackson has put on himself, no, they're not going to go ahead and do that. With that being said, what teams are still in the running for Lamar Jackson? Well, some of the names that I'm thinking about are the Detroit Lions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Indianapolis Colts, the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, and the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to go ahead and cross off some of those teams right now. I don't think the Tennessee Titans would be interested in Lamar Jackson, mainly because of the fact that they already got a solid quarterback on their roster in Ryan Tannehill. Even though he's not really that good of a player, the Titans might say, you know what, it's easier to exit out of the Tannehill contract than it would be for Lamar Jackson if the Lamar Jackson contract does not work out for them. So I'm going to rule out the Tennessee Titans. They're also more than a QB away from a Super Bowl, and honestly, they need to do a full-blown rebuild. They can't go all in on Lamar Jackson and expect to become Super Bowl contenders overnight. Then there's also the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe they could be interested in Lamar Jackson, but to be honest, they need to be drafting a quarterback in the first round and develop a quarterback, not trying to grab another team's quarterback. So I got to rule out the Colts. And then there's the Buccaneers. They are well over the cap. They could use a Lamar Jackson, but honestly, they need to use this year to clear cap space, not go ahead and try to chase for a quarterback that's going to be asking for a lot of money. So quite frankly, that's going to leave the Lions, the Jets, and the Patriots as the true contenders. However, with that being said, I'm going to rule out the Patriots in this because of the fact that Bill Belichick doesn't necessarily like mobile quarterbacks. I understand he employed Cam Newton in 2020, but look at how that played out. That fit was disastrous for them. So the New England Patriots, they're probably not going to be interested in getting a Lamar Jackson. So I'm going to have to rule them out. So to me, it comes down to either the Lions or the Jets. Or, quite frankly, Lamar Jackson is going to have to wait, and maybe he has to come back to the Baltimore Ravens and play on that franchise tag. The New York Jets, I'll say this about them. It depends on whether Aaron Rodgers ends up being on the New York Jets or not. If the Green Bay Packers cannot get a deal done with the New York Jets where they can send Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, then I believe that the New York Jets are going to be the front runners to get Lamar Jackson because they need a quarterback that can bring a spotlight to them. However, Aaron Rodgers is a better player than Lamar Jackson. Yes, he's older, but Aaron Rodgers is definitely the better quarterback. 10 times out of 10, if you're the New York Jets, you go ahead and trade for Aaron Rodgers. So they got to wait for that situation to play out. And if they get Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to have to rule out the New York Jets. So to me, it comes down to either the Detroit Lions or Lamar Jackson is going to have to either hold out or he's going to have to come back and play for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't believe Lamar Jackson wants to play for the Baltimore Ravens anymore, mainly because of the way that they treated him. These last 2 years of contract negotiations have surely been painful for Lamar Jackson, mentally speaking. He might not want to come back and play for the Ravens, so he might just either A, just choose to sit out until an injury happens to a starting quarterback, or B, he's going to end up going to the Detroit Lions via trade. But the thing with the Detroit Lions is Jared Goff has played really well for the Lions, especially in the last 9 games of the 2022 season. Jared Goff played so well that he made a Pro Bowl appearance for the Detroit Lions, and honestly, the Lions just need to fix up their defense, and they might be a playoff team this upcoming year. So when you look at it from that perspective, if you're the Detroit Lions, are you sure you want to go ahead and risk giving up Jared Goff, who played really well for the Lions in recent memory, just so they can go ahead and overpay, potentially speaking, Lamar Jackson? So to me, it's either the Detroit Lions or Lamar Jackson is going to hold out until a team has their starting quarterback injured. Because to me, there's really no clear pathway what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. But it's going to be interesting to see what will happen. What I'm going to say ultimately is, though, I think the Detroit Lions will pass on Lamar Jackson, even though they could probably actually pull that off. And I say that because the Detroit Lions, they could give up 2 first-round picks and they would still have a first-round pick this year. In fact, they're going to have the 6th overall pick thanks to the Matthew Stafford trade. So they're going to have that on their hands. If they want to go ahead and take that risk, I wouldn't mind it at all, but I don't think they will, just because of the fact that Jared Goff played so well for the Lions that it led to a Pro Bowl season for him in Detroit. I think Detroit's going to reward him with loyalty. I think they're going to go ahead and keep him on the roster. So that means Lamar Jackson, what's going to happen to him? Well, buddy, you're going to have to wait till a team gets their starting quarterback injured, because right now there's really no clear fit for where you could go. Maybe the Indianapolis Colts will take you in if they can't get a quarterback in the draft. Maybe the Carolina Panthers would be willing to take you in if they can't get a quarterback with the 9th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Otherwise, Lamar Jackson, you're going to be a Baltimore Raven, whether you like it or not. So that is why Lamar Jackson's inability to get a long-term contract done will end up hurting him more than helping him. As a result of that, Lamar Jackson is going to have to either A, stage a holdout, or B, come back to the Baltimore Ravens and play under the non-exclusive franchise tag. It's really that simple, because no team is willing to give up 2 first-round picks for him and give him a fully guaranteed contract Ultimately, what I'm saying to Lamar Jackson is that he's got to lower down his asking price because no one is going to be willing to give him that. That's just the reality of the situation. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I'm going to shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That will be for the @Dustin Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.